Okay, so let's get started. Again, welcome everyone. This is Hongwu from the UVA Club of Seattle. I'm a board member of the club. Thank you everyone for signing up our event. If you are local in Seattle, we organize the event throughout the year. So feel free to join our event in the future. We also have a Facebook group. If you want to get notice from our club, please follow us on Facebook. Today, we are honored to have Arin Peter joining us to talk about how to level up your LinkedIn profile. So after graduating from McIntyre in 2013, Arin started her career in consulting before making her way into tech companies. Today, she leads all university programs for Microsoft Finance, including interns, analysts, and MBA hiring. She joined Microsoft in August 2019 after spending more than 4 years in LinkedIn and after 2 years at Deloitte in Deloitte Consulting in human capital consulting. She held various roles across LinkedIn, from program management to communication, and she's thrilled to bring the Level Up Your LinkedIn content to us today. Outside of work, you can find Arin teaching dance fitness classes on the side and staying active with exploring the Seattle area. She's always open to hiking or the day trip recommendations. Without further ado, I hand it over to Arin Peter.
You have built me up, my friend, so thank you. Let me just share a couple of slides, and I saw quite a range of where people are dialing in from. I was a former Bay Area myself, and now you find me in Bellevue, which is this background behind. But let me go ahead and share these slides. All right, thumbs up that you can see these. Yes, perfect. Okay, well, happy Wednesday evening or Thursday morning for our friends in Singapore that I saw. This is one of our West Coast clubs conversations. And as Hongwu said, we're going to focus all about leveling up your LinkedIn. And as someone who has worked at LinkedIn, hopefully I have a little bit of the insider tips and tricks and now works for the mothership of Microsoft, which still owns LinkedIn. So thankfully, this is some of the most updated data for everyone here. A little bit of housekeeping. Hopefully everyone saw we are recording. So like no pressure to furiously be writing down notes or anything. You will get all of this afterwards. We'll record and then can share this out as a PDF. I love that some people have their cameras on. If you're comfortable and want to have cameras on, great. If you want to just type questions into the chat, that's great too. We'll be moderating that. And then I know some people actually shared questions in advance. And so hopefully I've got all of those answered throughout the deck, but I'll also make time to pause for questions that come up. And then unlike other workshops, you are totally encouraged to have your LinkedIn profile up next to you. So I'm not saying like go multitask, but I am saying if you want your LinkedIn profile up either on your phone or on a screen next to you, absolutely encouraged. Just, please limit the emails or other distractions that might be coming in. All right, well, let's get this LinkedIn party started, as I'd say. And I tend to do these workshops probably monthly. And so I have a ton of fun sharing this. I'm not like a level up your LinkedIn expert to the extreme, but I probably have a lot of great insight and hope to answer your questions live. Or if I can't, hopefully I can help find someone or the resources to answer anything that is top of mind. Hongwu gave my intro, so I won't say too much else, but I am a proud McIntyre and UVA alum, have a kind of a Jill of all trades background from consulting to LinkedIn to Microsoft. And then yes, dance fitness is my side hustle, as is being a dog mom and avid PNW explorer, you would say. So what we're going to go over today, first is the value of LinkedIn. Second, we'll talk about the keys to your profile. And I know one person actually specifically asked about your tagline and summary. And those are two of the most important things for your profile. So we'll talk about those. How you build community on LinkedIn, use your voice on LinkedIn, find and search for jobs, and then hopefully take any more questions at the end. So I don't want this to feel overly like I'm talking at you. I will pause for questions in all of these sections. And I think the best way to get virtual workshops started is with a little bit of trivia. So keep the energy flowing that's in the chat. With my first question, is how does LinkedIn make money? So go ahead and type into the chat the ways that LinkedIn makes money.
Lightheaded.
I'm fine.
Let me just pull up the chat box here. Okay, so I see premium membership, ads, job postings, a lot of premium. Recruiter fees. Okay, I think I see 3 of the 5 ways LinkedIn makes money. Okay, trainings was included, which I can say is, oh, and LinkedIn Learning. All right, 4 of the 5. We might be close to all 5. I know these are coming in real time right now. So let me go ahead and share how LinkedIn makes money. And so the reason I always kick this off this way is just to help us figure out like the value of LinkedIn is so much more than a job site or so much more than a marketing tool. But what LinkedIn really is a platform that helps both enterprises and consumers, so people like you and me, get value. 98% of LinkedIn's revenue tends to come from these 4 enterprise solutions. And so when you think about helping companies hire great people, market their products and services, sell whatever products and services they have, and then upskill their workforce, all of those are the enterprise ways LinkedIn makes money. And when you think about the learning piece and upskilling your workforce, that also might be like University of Virginia, who might have LinkedIn Learning subscriptions for students to be able to learn through on-demand or video courses. On the premium side, that's how we as consumers might drive revenue for LinkedIn. And that's where we'll focus most of our conversation today. But about 2% of LinkedIn's revenue comes from everyday people like you and I having premium subscriptions. And I know one question actually that came in was, would I recommend premium? And what I would say is I recommend premium if you have a purpose to like why you want premium. So if you are actively seeking a job, if you are actively trying to learn new skills to change perhaps industry or job function, then I think premium is great. If you are not actively trying to, again, change roles, change functions, or maybe sell something that might be a side hustle of yours, I don't know that I would say premium is where you have to spend your money. Not because I don't see value in it, but I just think the most value is if you have a reason for that subscription. Because otherwise you can do a bunch of great stuff on LinkedIn, and I'll show you how to do all of that. All right, one more question and then getting into the meat of it. How many people search for a job on LinkedIn every week? And so these would be searching for jobs across any company, any industry. At least 10. Mike, you definitely got the answer there. It is at least 10. Okay, 15 million, 16 million, 12. Don't think anyone has yet shared. It is higher than what, oh, close. Sam, you gave it a little bit too much of a swing. You were close. It's a little over 40 million come to LinkedIn every single week to search for jobs. And then a fun fact is a person is hired through LinkedIn every 20 seconds. So in the time I've probably finished the sentence, 2 people have found jobs on LinkedIn, which is great. But LinkedIn is a lot more than a job site, but I think it's important we talk about the job seeking behaviors, especially since I know some of the questions that came in were around maybe actively looking for a job or actively trying to change roles. We will spend time going over that. And we've seen this number increase from this time 6 months ago. It was about 25 million. We're looking for jobs every week. And then 6 months later, we're at 40 million. So it is definitely an active place to search and find for jobs, but there's a lot more you can do on LinkedIn, whether you're actively looking for a job or not. So we'll get into actually the nuts and bolts of LinkedIn and your profile now. So when you think about LinkedIn, I want you to think about yourself like a company, which I know sounds kind of weird because we're all people and we have way more to ourselves than we do maybe how we think of a company. But I say that because all of us have brands, just like every company has a brand. And so think of LinkedIn as a great place to build your brand and tell your brand story. So just as a company is going to have an identity tied to it, all of us have a professional identity tied to us. And we want to bring forward our professional identity on LinkedIn. When you think about platforms like Facebook or Twitter, that's probably a place you might bring forward more of a personal identity, and you want to have a little bit more of that professional identity hat to LinkedIn. It's still a place to be human and uniquely you, but it's also a place that I think you focus more on telling a professional story that could speak to potential employers, could speak to customers, or people you want to build business relationships with. And we'll talk about how you really make yourself stand out now on LinkedIn. So one question I often get, although I don't think I saw it directly asked, was how does LinkedIn differ from a resume? And it's a great and fair question. And we'll actually talk a bit on the details to it of where you can pull some things from your resume onto LinkedIn. But I would emphasize LinkedIn is not the same thing as your resume. LinkedIn is a professional community where you'll professionally tell a story. And that story you might pull from the work experiences you've had, but it's going to be more evolving than a static one-pager or two-page resume that you have. And again, it's going to speak to a wide range of employers, customers, or people you might want to work with. Whereas typically, when you think about a resume, you're often tailoring that resume to one specific employer. And so think about this as a little bit more of that dynamic version of you. You can also include rich media or links to projects that you might have worked on your LinkedIn profile to have it be even more dynamic and stand out. And so let's get into the nuts and bolts. So I'm going to give you the 3 keys that are super important to have on LinkedIn. Like this is the only thing I hope you take away from this is these 3 things is what I'm asking everyone has. First, I want to give a big shout out and thank you to Kara, who's part of the UVA Seattle Club and said I could totally take from her profile to pull into this. So you'll see her, Hongwoo, and myself throughout this. But the number one thing that is important to have is actually a profile picture. I know for some people it's intimidating to put out there, or you're not sure, like, do I really want to put forward a picture of myself here? But the data shows with a profile picture, you're going to be more searched. It also actually lets people know it's the Kara that I'm searching for. If I don't see a face here and just a name, I might wind up coming across other Karas and it might be difficult for me to distinguish, is this the right person I'm trying to get in touch with or to search for? So a picture humanizes you. The data shows more people will actually see it's you. And then when you're taking your picture, I want to get rid of the intimidating factor that you have to be super buttoned up and it has to be super professional. You want to be dressing for the job that you want. And so if your job, I know that Kara, you're more in healthcare. If it's more healthcare focused, you can pull something in that looks like that. If you work in financial services, maybe that looks a little bit more buttoned up or professional. If you're in tech like me, some people wear t-shirts here. I'd probably always up level a little more from a t-shirt, but just look like you, have that authentic, natural expression, but it really is important to have a profile picture. On the LinkedIn app on your phone, you actually can take the picture directly in that, and it can help you put a blank background behind you to limit the distractions away from you. So quick and fun tip, but one of the 3 things I hope you take away. The second thing, and this was one of those direct questions, let me click one more. The second thing is your headline. So your headline, people ask, like, is this really important? And your headline is really going to be the 5 to 10 word tagline about you. And so if I were asking you to tell me, like, okay, 10 words to describe yourself, that is what you're going to start typing in your headline. This is going to be the first thing someone sees when they see your name and your picture is those 5 to 10 words. So if you had to boil down to what you'd want people to see that's uniquely you, that's what you're trying to put forward here. And so you'll see a couple of ranges here from Kara, myself, and Hongwoo, where it's probably easiest for many people to start with the job title you hold today. And that's a great place to start, but I think it only tells one piece of who you are. And I think your headline doesn't have to directly match your job title. You want it to speak a little bit more to who you are, because you're going to hold more than one job in your current career. You're going to work for more than one industry, perhaps, or more than one company. And so you can think about expanding this a little bit more. Ways I've seen people do this, and one thing that I like to do is I kind of have these line breaks between what I'd say is like a day job and a night job, or a day job and a side hustle. So a day job, right, I lead these big talent programs at Microsoft, but a night job or a side hustle is I also teach dance fitness classes. It's part of who I am, and I might build a bit more of my brand and identity around it. I also choose to put my identity on this, and so identifying as she, her. That's totally a personal preference, but something that I know people have tended to put here or might want to add here. So again, you might start with that job title, but I would really challenge you to think about yourself as bigger than just the job you hold. And so I've seen other people here put like skilled, if you work in finance, and I work and support a lot of finance partners, it might be finance professional at Microsoft, enjoys challenging problem solving, or enjoys something about Azure. Like this is very Microsoft heavy in that example, but you can find ways to expand, again, than just the job title that you hold. And so I'm happy to share a couple of profiles after that I think have really strong ones. And what I think that Kara and Hongwoo could do a little bit more of is add more than just that job title that they have here as an example. Okay, the next piece that's super important, and this is that third key that I hope you take away. So again, from picture, headline, and then summary, because these are the first things anyone's going to see about you when they search, right? Before I even get to your job experience or your volunteer experience, I have to click on your profile and be interested to read more. And so what we just had on your picture and headline gets me interested. The first thing I read about you is your summary. And the summary section is super, super important. And an insider tip is you need that summary to be at least 40 words for it to show up in the search results of other members and recruiters. I think a really great format for your summary is going to be what you have here. Typically 1 or 2 sentences about you, and this might pull from or expand upon that headline you had. 3 to 5 sentences about the experience or skills that you have, and then 1 or 2 sentences that are more forward-looking. And it could be forward-looking in the sense of how you want people to connect with you. It could be forward-looking and sharing. Here I have again, my side hustle, which I'm open to connecting with people about. It could be forward-looking if you want to give your time and serve as a mentor to other people. But think about it as 1 to 2 sentences, who I am, a couple of sentences, what have I done or what interests me, and then a couple of sentences that are forward-looking, how you want someone to connect with you. So I talk high level about being a business partner and program manager. I then speak to the actual work experience I have. So you'll notice I don't talk about Microsoft until after that, because again, I have a brand that lives before Microsoft. And then I talk about the past experiences I've had, and how I'm open to people connecting with me is again, outside of my day job, where you might find me. And I'm such a fan of assessments. Like if I geek out about all of these assessments like strength finders. So I share what my strengths finders are here in case others share, oh, I love assessments. I share Woo with you, want to talk about it. But I've also seen people here might be forward looking with, I am an avid hiker. I love the outdoors, things like that. You could share your personal interests if you'd like, and if you want that to be an open hook to other people to engage. So let me take a deep breath and pause. 3 things to take away, and then I will get into more of the details. Picture, headline, summary. The reason those are so important is because until this point, like I've had to scroll to your profile to get to the actual job experience section, which is why LinkedIn is so much more than just a job site. It really is a place to build your personal or your professional identity, and for people to connect with you. And now I'm hooked to learn more about your background and experiences and read more. And then Christina asked about the background picture. Great question, actually. Let me go back to that. So the background picture she's referring to is what lives right behind your profile picture here. And what I would do here, one, personal preference if you want it. You'll see that Kara doesn't personally have one. It doesn't look distracting or anything like that. So it's a personal choice if you want one. What I've seen people do is sometimes if they take pride in where they live, like the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge, you might want to have behind you. If you take pride in being a UVA alum, you could put a UVA background up there. I usually use it based off of what my company might be sharing or big things that are happening in the world. So for example, this is Black History Month right now. And so I wanted to use an image that talked about both Black History Month, but the intersectionality between Black history and also LGBTQ plus communities. So that's why I chose that one. I think Hongwoo, yours is more of like a broad tech background behind it. So whether it's industry, city that you live in, or things that you care about, all are options. Or again, you can have it similar to Kara's where it's not distracting and just as it is. Of course. And then let me get to the next question on headlines and summaries. I think I'll answer that one a little bit more also as I talk through the next steps to your profile. And I'll talk about how to distinguish yourself versus just put a bunch of buzzwords out there. All right. So once I have put together picture, headline, summary, the rest I like to say is gravy on your profile. And the reason I say that is because you are first going to be searched based off of the things that show up in your headline and your summary. And then it's going to start to pull from your job experience and your volunteer experience and your skills. And so really think about the flow of your profile importance with the flow in which I look at your profile. So think of it top to bottom. Right underneath your summary section is where your work experience lives. And so I've pulled Kara's example here, where when you think about your work experience, you want to think about a couple of sentences about the role you have, maybe a sentence about the company you work for. I would pull a couple of deliverables or things that you've driven. And this might be where you find yourself pulling from your resume, which I'd say this is the part that's totally okay to do that. And then what I think is different than your resume is you can also pull rich media in here. So let's say there's a presentation that's public facing or an article that you've authored as part of one of these roles. You can pull that media and it'll live on your profile in this section. What I would do here too, if you are pulling from your resume, just make a decision if you want to keep your bullet points or not after. I would just encourage you be consistent on doing that. I personally write a little bit more of a first person language on my profile because it's me speaking as opposed to as formal as like third person language. That's usually a question I get as well. Again, personal preference, but most LinkedIn employees usually write in the first person here. And then Henry, we will share this out as a PDF and you'll get this as a recording. It's a good question. One specific person actually asked, where do I put board member experience? And so I think that's a really great place to put in the volunteer experience. So this will live right below the work experience section. And you can see Hongwoo here, he's called out, he's a UVA Club of Seattle board member. One thing I would love to see a little bit more is like, what does the role look like? And maybe a sentence or two about the UVA club. All of us are lucky because we're UVA alum and know what this is, but I would tell a little bit more of the story to those who might come across your profile that don't know as much here. You don't have to go crazy on the volunteer experience in terms of the amount of content you add behind it, but I do think it's really important if you might be trying to change functions or change industries and the experience you have in a volunteer setting is transferable to that. I think it's a really underutilized section that can help you stand out. And again, the data shows if you have volunteer experience, you are more likely to have your profile viewed than those who don't have the volunteer experience. So I think of this as a great way to tell a story often if you're trying to transition, again, then perhaps a job role or function you have somewhere else. And then right underneath this are skills. And when you think about your skills, you are going to think about both the technical and soft skills that when people describe you and when you describe yourself, you would put forward. And so what you'll see here for mine are things I've pulled forward are leadership, public speaking, and data analysis. But I have a couple other skills that aren't listed because LinkedIn will pull up your top 3 skills. And then if I scroll down, I can see the rest of them. Automatically, LinkedIn will pull forward your top 3 by volume of people who've endorsed you. And so actually my third skill, I think, was communications. But because I wanted to show that I had more breadth in my skill set than just 3 that felt really relatable to one another, I pulled forward data analysis up in this example. So you can change the order with which those, but if you don't choose to change the order, it'll automatically happen by the 3 most endorsed skills. And then if you are someone who's incredibly technical, you have the ability to take technical skills quizzes through LinkedIn, and you can actually have like a badge that gets added to your profile and endorses you as skilled in this field or domain. Right now, those are really just for technical ones versus softer skills, but something to check out. All right, and then I'm going to come back to these questions in just a moment or two. Let me get to one more section and then see all of the questions that have come in on profile, because after this, we'll shift to job seeking, networking, and then building your voice on LinkedIn. So before I wrap up the profile section, super, super important I talk about privacy. And I know that this is something that came up as well. I think someone asked, you know, like, how do I know if people like see if I've looked at their profile, or what level of stalking almost happens on LinkedIn might have been how it was worded, which I get a lot of humor from. I totally hear it. What I want you to take away is that you are in control of your privacy on LinkedIn. So if you go to your profile, in the top right corner, there's a me icon. You drop down to settings and privacy. And here's where you have visibility to how your profile is set up today, to the level of security associated with your profile, to what you're going to share from a visibility standpoint. So today, when I search for somebody, they will see my name, my picture, and my headline that I've searched for them. But I can choose just to share like my broad title. It could be someone at Microsoft looked at them. So you are in control of how visible you want yourself to be to other people when searching them. So all of that is going to show up in your privacy settings. And I would encourage after this workshop that you take time to look through those privacy settings and see what's out there and what you're comfortable with. I have found that when some people are actively job seeking, they want to share their contact information. So if you are actively looking for or open to a new role, you could choose to display your email and have people then more easily reach out to you that way as an option. So let me pause. This is usually the meat of the presentation, again, is focused just on profile, and then we'll go to job seeking, networking, and our voice. But I want to see what questions have come up. So I'm going to just scroll back in the chat really quick. So, okay, Joanna, on the headlines and summaries using the same buzzwords. I know it is tough sometimes to resist, but I think it's important you use some time to define who you are, what words would I use, and you're right, with the nature of a headline being 5 to 10 words, maybe there's a limited amount of words that you might pull from. But I actually think your summary is where I would tell more of a story in that format we described earlier. So a sentence or two describing who you are, a couple sentences about the experiences you've had, and then a sentence or two that's forward-looking. I think from a search standpoint, if your goal is to be searched more, the way recruiters are going to search for you on LinkedIn is often they're going to be looking for people with similar word choice to the jobs that they post. So if I'm looking for someone who's a program manager, I'm going to probably search program manager as a recruiter and see the profiles that have that pulled up. But usually they do a string of searches with other words as well. And so let's say you're actively trying to get a certain type of position. I would look at job postings and see where there is some consistency in those postings, not for you to be inauthentic in how you describe yourself, but as you said, maybe to acknowledge that when recruiters are searching for those specific postings and people who could be qualified for those postings, it's helpful for you to have similar words show up. Again, not to be inauthentic, but it is helpful because that's how they're searching. We answered around the chat being made. I want to make sure I'm getting to everyone. So one sec, let me just blow this up. Posting on media. We can talk more on like the image that might be a little bit specific here. And Mike, thank you for adding a little bit to it. Importance of recommendation skills endorsements. Stephen, I would answer that back to like how I think of your profile goes back to like the order in which it shows up. So like most important at the top, if recommendations and skills are at the bottom. I'm not trying to say it doesn't matter, but I'm saying it takes someone a lot longer to get there. And so that's why I would focus more on the story that you tell in your summary and your headline first.
So just related to that, Arin, so yeah. That's super helpful. Are there ever any, or not ever, but like, is it ever common for a recruiter or a headhunter or somebody to actively put a skill or a recommendation or anything like that in a search that would then, surface you?
I have found that more for very technical roles to be open. So if there's a very technical skill that's required, typically that's where it's going to show up. Usually I
Got it.
also see that people put their technical skills like in that bottom section of their summary. They might also write it down there. So I'd say
Okay,
only for
thanks.
technical roles. Yeah,
Thanks.
of course, of course. All right, sorry friends, my chat just quickly, I know it's right here. There we go. So limiting the skills you show, really only the top 3 will show up as strongly. And then we're going to talk about the job seeking section right now and the open to opportunities. So you are segueing perfectly to that. So let's shift gears into building your network and actively job seeking. But before we do this, got to make sure everyone's still here. A little bit of trivia for you. Go ahead and type into the chat what percentage of LinkedIn's overall community do you think lives outside the US? And if you'd also like to guess extra credit, what are the top 3 countries outside the US LinkedIn's community comes from? Let's see. Quite a range. Okay, so far only Lindsay is taking the extra credit. Dana is coming in too. Okay, I think most of you are close because it is a little over 70%. I saw a lot of like mid 60s. So about 70%, or a little over, excuse me, I think it's 72% of LinkedIn's members live outside the US. So I hope that just speaks again to the global nature of the platform and opportunities for you to connect with and find people around the world. And then for the countries, I know I saw India and China, but did anyone put Brazil in? I don't know. So after the US, the top 3 countries with which our members come from are India, China, and Brazil. So just wanted to speak a little bit to the global nature and how you can connect with people. And then go ahead and type into the chat one more question on the trivia front. What percentage of people do you think find jobs through someone that they know? And when I say someone that they know, it could be someone that they met on LinkedIn. Okay, 85, 40, 80, 98. That was so specific, 90. All right, these are pretty high. On average, it is just over 50%, but it'll probably differ, again, based off of the size company and industry that you're in. But what this speaks to, and also what the perception speaks to, right, is if you know people, opportunities open for you. I wish we lived in a world where just like skills spoke for themselves, but it is important to also make sure you have connections with the types of companies and the types of industries or employers you want to break into. And you're spot on too, Stephen. It's probably going to differ based off of where you are in your career or the size of company or industry that you're in. But on the whole, it still speaks to more than 50% of people find jobs and opportunities through people they know. And one person asked in the questions before, well, what if I don't know somebody on LinkedIn, but I want to get to know them? They might have a job that interests me, or they work for a company that I want to learn a lot about. We'll talk about how you reach out and why you reach out, and then back on the job seeking front. So real quick, just on nomenclature, when you're on LinkedIn, your first degree connections are the people that you have directly said, I want to connect with you, or they have said, I want you to be in my network. So anyone that you accept on LinkedIn is a first degree connection. And on your profile, it might have things like 500 plus connections. Someone asked about when I see that, that means I'm connected to at least 500 first degree connections. So think of your first degree connections as people you've worked with, you went to school with. They could have been your neighbors, they could be your family members. It's totally okay to connect with your family and friends on LinkedIn. But these are going to be anyone who's you know or who you would like to invite to your network. And you'll then see content that they share. And that's why it's important to make sure you accept people in your network and reach out to people in your network that, again, you know, you have a mutual interest with, and that content that they share might be valuable or interesting. Your second degree connections are all of the people your first degree connections know. So my second degree network is often where I think of the greatest value with networking, because it's not that I know Meggie, but it's that Meggie knows Hongwoo and I'm looking to connect with Hongwoo. So all of those people are your second degree connections. Everyone that your second degree connections are connected to are your third degree connections. Not going to go too deep there, but hopefully that makes sense. One question that had come up, actually before I do the alumni tool, is when and how do I reach out to people that I don't know? And I'd say there's two ways to do this. So if I don't know somebody, and let's just take Hongwoo as an example, even though I know Hongwoo and Meggie knows Hongwoo, I might choose to ask my first degree connection to facilitate an introduction, right? So I might say, hey, Meggie, we're connected. Saw that you know Hongwoo. I'm interested in learning about blank from him. Can you make a connection? Or I just reach out directly to Hongwoo and I would write a message to him. I don't have to connect with him, which is really important to distinguish, but I might write a message to him and send an email that says, hey, we've not connected. We're both UVA alum, have a few people in common. I'm looking to connect with you on blank. Are you open to a conversation? I often find that instead of doing that, people typically just send me a random connection request with no context, and I'm not going to accept it. It's not because I don't care, but I don't know the context behind why someone's connecting with me. And if I don't have that context, I don't want to have that person as a first degree connection, because then what I see on my LinkedIn experience will get diluted by potentially people that I just don't know or content that's not relevant to me. And so that's why I really do emphasize either the in-mail or personalize the connection request, which is also so underrated. But you can click to personalize the connection request and you can add 2 to 3 sentences with why you're looking to connect with that person. Those 2 to 3 sentences, if someone takes the time to write that, I will take the time to respond. It doesn't mean I always add them to my network, because again, if I add them to my network, then a lot of my feed experience will be driven by what they post, but perhaps I have a couple conversations with them and then I add them to my network. So that's why I think someone asked, someone said, I get a lot of connection requests. I don't know them. Should I accept them or not? I personally accept them if they've written a really awesome in-mail or had a really great personalization, or if there's someone that I'd like to see the types of content and the things that they post and share. No one will know if you declined the request. No one will know if you remove them as a connection request later. Like, they don't get any notifications or anything like that. I'm not saying go on a big cleanup of your network now, but I am saying it's really helpful to be connected with people you know or who share content you find interesting, because that's what's going to make your LinkedIn experience more valuable and more enriching. If you feel like your feed is super random and you don't know what's being posted, it might be because you have a lot of connections that maybe you accepted in the past and just don't know why you're connected today, sort of deal. And then Laura so I don't think you have to have premium to send in-mails. I think you can get credits back. It's about if someone responds to your in-mail, you can get stuff back. But that's also why I think personalizing your connection requests is another idea. So other people that you can find, and then I promise we'll get to all of the job seeking questions here. A great place to look for people that you might not know today, but that you probably have a shared interest with, and then could open up the door to have a connection to. Think about our UVA alumni tool. And so you can search here for either alumni based off of the job titles they hold, the industries that they're in, the types of companies that they work for. And then you can figure out, okay, here are all the alumni with this sort of job title. It's a really easy way for you then to personalize that connection request or send an in-mail and say, hey, came across you in the UVA alumni tool, was super curious about your transition from healthcare to technology. Would love to have a 10-minute conversation. Are you open to it? Again, I find so much more frequently if you personalize the message, people will take the time to respond. And just here's like a super sample format. Think of it as like 3 or 4 sentences. Hey, here's how I found your profile. Why am I reaching out? the I would love to join your network language is pretty formal and is kind of like the auto population that comes from LinkedIn. I would probably frame this as like, I'd love to have a quick conversation. Are you open to that? Something like that. And then when you're thinking about building that network, again, you want it to be people you either have something in common with, who have a job or work at a company that might be of interest to you, or maybe you want them to work with you. And so it might be, I found your profile, I find you super interesting, would love to hear more about your career path. Or it might be that you're actively seeking a mentor. And so you're not looking for something active today, but you really would love to get some mentoring conversations or advice. And then I keep it simple. This is who I am. Here's how I found you. Can we have a conversation? And no, Martha, if you remove them, they're not going to get a notification. You're going to be good. Good question. Okay, so now let's get to the searching for jobs piece, especially because I saw things around like the open to feature being added. So I want to talk about active job seeking for just the next couple of slides. And then I promise after this, we'll take more questions, but I'll try to keep answering them real time as they come in. So on the jobs front, there's really 3 things I wanted to talk about. The first is if you are actively looking for a job, I would toggle on the open to feature. So on your profile, there is going to be a box that only you see, which I took a screenshot here of, that says show recruiters you're open. I click onto that box and I can tell recruiters, hey, I'm open to work. Here's the type of work I'm open to. You can type up to 5 different job titles. Here's the locations that I'm looking at and the type of work I'm open to. You'll see here for the view, I have it as only recruiters. Let's say that you're a student who just graduated. You might have this open to feature open to everyone. Or let's say you're someone who's trying to return to the workforce after taking an extended amount of time off. There's no harm in you saying this open to feature, toggling that as open to everyone. If you're in a job today and you don't want people to know you're actively looking, I'd probably therefore just have open to recruiters only. But if you, again, are actively looking and want people to know, I would change that view from only recruiters to an everyone visibility view. And so the open to feature is really helpful because when a recruiter is doing a search on LinkedIn, not only will your profile get pulled up at the top based off of the keywords you have, if you have at least 40 words in your summary, but it'll also start to pull up to the top people who have that open to feature because it indicates to the recruiter, this person probably has a higher likelihood of responding to my message than me sending a job posting to someone who doesn't have that open to feature up. I can't guarantee you that a recruiter at your own company wouldn't see the open to, but I feel like that's so rare. Usually that's like one question that comes up is like, would my boss know or would recruiters at my company know? I can't guarantee that a recruiter at your company wouldn't know, but again, I feel like it's pretty rare and it only is going to show up when a recruiter is actively searching for a job that your profile matches. Another thing that I would set up if you're actively looking for jobs is job alerts. And you can save types of jobs that are of interest to you. And then LinkedIn will send you an email, whether it's once a day or once a week, you can set the frequency. It'll send you an email of other jobs that match the type of jobs you've saved. I think this is super important because it'll send you that email once a job that matches that gets posted. And the quicker you apply to a job from when it's posted, the higher likelihood you're going to get seen. I can't tell you the higher likelihood you're going to get the job, but it is going to be helpful in such a hot job market as it is now for you to apply as quickly as a requisition is posted, because then you have a higher likelihood of the recruiter actually viewing and getting to your profile. You could be a qualified applicant for a job that's posted. They just might not see you because there were another 100, 200 people who might have applied before you. I also just got a note that my internet connection is unstable. Am I okay to everyone? Okay. Very odd. I was like, I think I'm fine, but if I have been talking to myself, I apologize. Good. I think we're okay. So open to, and then setting up job alerts. And then let me share just 2 more job seeking tips and then come to whatever else is in the chat. Another question that came up is, how do I stand out in applications and interviews? So if you get that LinkedIn premium subscription, the premium one for consumer, because you and I are everyday consumers, you'll also get access to this common interview library. And so if you are actively job searching, again, here's where I do think that value comes through with the premium subscription. And you'll be able to see all these common interview questions, watch a video recording of really great answers to those and great frameworks to think about. And these tend to be just the most common interview questions that come forward. So they're not going to be necessarily super technical or super specific to any one job, but think about the most common questions that might come up. And then, okay, perfect. Then it's networking. So 3 things I wanted to share from the job seeking section: open to if you're actively looking, set up those job alerts, because again, the sooner you hear about jobs that are of interest and the quicker you apply, just the higher likelihood a recruiter hopefully sees you. And then interviewer prep. You can turn on the open to and job alerts just through having your basic LinkedIn. You don't have to pay for those. But if you do want the interviewer prep, I believe that is a feature that comes with paying for the consumer subscription, just to clarify. Okay, real fast on the questions. This most recent one on using Easy Apply, why and why not? So Easy Apply, I think if you have a really strong LinkedIn profile, great, use it. What Easy Apply does is it's going to share your name and your profile to that recruiter. Most often, when you click to apply for a job on LinkedIn, it usually takes you to an external site that that company owns, and you're usually going to have to apply with an email, with a resume, and potentially with answering other basic questions that are required for that job. But I would say use Easy Apply if you are like actively looking and if you have a strong profile, because it's your profile that gets shared with Easy Apply. On the interviewer prep, no, if you're asking about these interviewer sections, this is just going to be curated based off of data that LinkedIn did for like the most common interviewer questions that come up. It'll just share that. You can sort a little bit by like the type of job questions, but it won't give you specific interviewer prep to a company. Skills assessments. I say again, if it's like a highly technical skill, I think it's more valuable, to be honest. And I'm sorry, I'm going reverse order in the questions that are coming in. How can you successfully contact support? Oh, some of these also might be direct questions to me, so I apologize, friends, if you're not seeing everything that I am coming through. For some of these direct questions, I might answer afterwards. Okay, did I miss any questions that came in? I think I just saw earlier that there was the questions around open to an interviewer prep, which we answered. And then around, just scrolling really quick through the feed to make sure. Oh, I think one question that had come up, if you're looking for a job and open to recruiters, do you have to connect with them or the recruiter? You don't have to connect with them. No, usually the recruiter will be the one to connect with you based on seeing the open to. Something you can actually do though, if you're actively hiring for people, you can change from having a like, I'm looking to jobs to an I'm hiring to jobs. And that can be great to show people that you might actively have opportunities to hire people for. Okay, I'm going to shift for the last 10 minutes to using your voice on LinkedIn and then see what other questions come in. So hopefully we've talked about LinkedIn as way more than a job site, but I did want to focus on jobs. The keys to your profile. So again, picture, headline, summary, super, super important. The rest is gravy, good to have, but before anyone reads that, they need to be hooked to see your profile. And then we talked about networking. Now we're going to go a bit into like, what do I share on LinkedIn? And like, why am I sharing this on LinkedIn? And so when we talk about the types of things to share, there's really 2 ways that you can share. You can share a post or you can write an article. When you are sharing a post, your post could be text only. It could include a picture, it could include a video, or it could include a link to another article that you find interesting and want to share your perspective on. So 2 examples here I've recently pulled a couple of days ago. I'm a huge fan of Peloton. I took a really great class from my favorite instructor, and actually the way he was motivating me, I felt was really applicable to how we could just motivate teams. And so I wanted to share what my thoughts were at that class. Another example might be a virtual holiday party, which is what you see here, and taking a picture from the holiday time and just celebrating it. When you're going to share a post, it's super, super important you have hashtags. And I think sometimes people get uncomfortable by a hashtag. They're like, why am I adding this? I don't understand. The reason you add a hashtag is that's what makes your post searchable. So for example, on the Peloton one, I have here hashtag Wednesday Wellness, hashtag Peloton. And so if people are searching that hashtag, my post will show up with other content that has that hashtag. If I don't have a hashtag to it, my post isn't going to be searchable. Someone would have to go to my profile, remember that I posted it, and then be able to find it. And the way you search for hashtags is the same way you search for people. It's in that top bar. You just type hashtag wellness or hashtag career tips, and it'll show you all the content related to that hashtag, prioritizing the content from your first degree connections, and then prioritizing the content from your second degree connections or people that you work with, either the same company, same industry, things like that. Let's say that you are someone who's trying to build more thought leadership or someone who has a lot to say about a topic. That is where I would use the article feature. And you want to think of an article as usually a longer form post where you're writing an opinion piece on something. Or it could be you just have more to share than, again, what's going to show up in this short form post. And so for articles, I think of it as usually 500 words or more. And the types of things that I would write about could be like tips on transitioning to a virtual environment. If I don't have just like a couple bullet points, but I actually want to write more depth behind what I've learned, I would put that, for example, in an article. Or if you are a certain thought leader in an industry, you can build all of these articles up. And what's really great is articles you author are going to live right under your summary section and just be another way for people to get to know you. All right, so when you think about posting, again, you can post updates. They can include pictures, videos, or links elsewhere, or you can write a longer form article. And if you're like, Arin, I don't know what I should post about, like you gave me 2 nice examples, but I still have no clue what to post or share. 2 areas that you could find is when you go onto your LinkedIn feed, not only do you see like the types of stuff your networks are talking about, but on the right-hand side, you're also going to see trending news and courses. The LinkedIn news, I find to be such an interesting way to start conversations. And so you'll see here usually 5 or 6 types of articles. If I click on that, it might inspire me to think about participating in the conversation. It might inspire me to use that to write my thoughts on something. And so I find the LinkedIn news to be a really great way just to inspire like what's happening and what might I share. Or if you want to think about courses that LinkedIn Learning shares to you, it could be you take one of these courses, like the one on unconscious bias, and then you're able to write after, hey, just took this course, highly recommend, and here's why. Or, hey, took this course, here are the 2 things that resonated, and here's something that didn't. What do you all think about it? And so you can use the news and courses as really great ways to just spark conversation. I think I've got one more for us and then get to have about 5 minutes or so for more questions. So when you're posting on LinkedIn, I want you to remember this is your voice. So you want to sound like you, not a robot. You want to be authentically you. As much as you can, posting with some consistency is really helpful. So that way your network knows you're going to be talking on LinkedIn and they can, comment or like or react to whatever it is that you're sharing. As much as you can make a goal of once a month, I think is a really great goal. I say once a week to be ambitious, but I think once a month is a really great place to start. And again, based off of the job or industry you're in, you might post with more or less frequency. And you want to think about conversations that are relevant to the people that you're connected to. If you want to write those longer form articles that I talked about, here's where article length does matter. I would try to think of at least 500 words for a deeper article. If it's less than that, it can probably be done in that short form post we talked about. Again, be you, be authentic, and then think of a snappy headline or something to bring people into reading that longer form article. I think that I have powered through. I'm also going to turn my lights on because you have seen the West Coast sunset throughout this conversation of from like, we were bright at 5 p.m. Pacific and now at 5:57, stuff is getting dark. So let me just turn one extra light on to my home office and bedroom. Welcome to the world of COVID. And let me see what other questions have come in and then see which ones I can answer real time. But hopefully I got all of the pre-submitted questions that came in through everyone. Okay. Where did I miss? Is it expected that we endorse our connections? No, I would endorse people that I've either like worked with and had a really positive reaction with, or if they've asked me for an endorsement or asked for a recommendation, then I would do it. But again, since it lives so far on your profile, I don't tend to find those to be like the most value added sections. Might regularly receive notifications outside your preferences and locations. You know, it might be helpful for us to look at your profile, and we can talk about that after, to see if maybe your profile is written in a potentially broader way that is inviting other people to want to share with you things that might not actually be as specific or of as interest to you. And then we can also think about like the visibility of your profile or how often you're searched for. You can do that in some of your privacy and settings. Oh, favorite instructors on Peloton, I assume. So that'd be Alex and Cody are my top two. And then Allie Love and Emma Lovewell are a top, like a 3 and 4. But like Cody gives me that hype energy that I need to feel fabulous. Yes, I love Cody. And then Alex gives me that let's work super hard and like sometimes leave crying because you've worked so hard. I know I haven't tried Matt Wilpers yet. I'm sorry about that. When writing an article, no. So when you write an article, it is your voice. And so you are writing, it'll live on your profile, but it's not that LinkedIn owns that. You absolutely can take that and put it on another blog. I've also seen people copy and paste what they might have authored from another blog onto the LinkedIn article. I would just think since it lives on your LinkedIn profile, you want to make sure you're writing something that's professionally relevant, as opposed to more of like a personal travel blog, unless your job is in travel, which sounds wonderful, perhaps not this year, but in a future year. So hashtags. I don't think there's a way to have a hashtag without it showing up publicly. I know it feels, again, like hashtags I know are often a barrier, but it really helps your post be searchable. If you don't want to write it directly in your main copy or post, you could always write it in a comment, like in response to your post, and therefore it might not show up in the main body, but it shows up in a comment underneath it. But I know it's an uncomfortable behavior. I promise, like the more you do it, the more it might become a bit more natural, and it does help from a searchability standpoint. I'll take these last two, and also as it's getting late, my dog has just walked in too, so you might see her in the background. If we only recently made our profile public, recommendations around tactics. So it's not going to be like a one size fits all for everyone. It's such a great question, but I think this goes back to it's important for the types of jobs you're looking for, the types of industries that you're in, and we can talk a little bit more after. But I think you want to find that blend between making your profile both uniquely you and searchable, which I know is a tough blend to strike, but you want it to tell a unique story for you. And you also want it to be relatable to what the recruiters or people at other companies might search for. And that's where sometimes I find it helpful to look at profiles of people who have jobs you're interested in, or to look at the types of job postings that interest you and see where there's common language across some of those profiles or postings. Okay, I know we're coming up just over time, and so I apologize as I'm like power talking through here. I know we've recorded. We'll totally share this out as a PDF after. In the same spirit, as I said, if you personalize an in-mail or a connection request, I will respond. I will respond. So if you have follow-up and you want to talk after, please just find me on LinkedIn and just send me like a personal connection request or send me a message like, hey, saw you at the UVA alum session, best workshop ever. You don't have to write that, of course, but I wanted to talk more about blank, or I would love if you could take 5 minutes to give me thoughts on profile. Like, more than happy to do that. Can't guarantee I'll get to everyone within like the next day or two, but I will absolutely respond if you take the time to send a message there. And then Stephen, thank you for actually best workshop ever. I do appreciate that. If we didn't get to questions, just follow up with them after. And I think that's it. I know I'm racing because we're a little over time, but just appreciate everybody and hope this was valuable and helpful.
Arin, thank you so much. Thank you for your time, for your experience. We really loved having you. This was the best workshop ever. So as she mentioned, we'll have this recording up on our site, and I'll be sending out an email. There will be a brief survey just to get some of your thoughts on tonight, which I know will be 5 stars all across. Right, Arin? And with that, I'll also follow up with a link to the recording. So please feel free to send it to your friends and family if you think this would be helpful to them. Keep in touch. Look out for our emails for further events, and hopefully we'll see you then. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you all.